In the first part of my talk, I give a report on the discovery of LSD. I realize it is a very, very old story, and I must apologize for repeating it here. But as since so many quite fantastic versions how LSD has been discovered are currently within professional circles, I think you would like to hear also the true story. It is often stated in the literature that LSD was discovered by chance. The following account will show that LSD was not the fruit of a chance discovery, but the outcome of a more complex process that had its beginnings in a definite concept and was followed up by appropriate experiments during the course of which a chance observation served on to trigger off a planned investigation, which then led to the actual discovery. Such a train of events often underlies what is said to be a chance discovery. I prepared lysergic acid diethylamide for the first time in 1938 as part of a systematic chemical and pharmacological investigation on ergot alkaloids in the Sandoz Pharmaceutical Chemical Research Laboratories in Basel, headed at that time by Professor Arthur Stoll. For a better understanding of the following account, some background information about ergot is needed. Ergot is produced by a lower fungus, by Claviceps purpurea, that grows parasitically on rye, but also on other species of grain and on wild grasses. This is the first picture. It will be nothing new for you, everybody knows what that means. These protrusions coming out of the grain are named ergot. The kernels infested with the fungus developing this light brown to purple brown curved text with sclerotia in place of the normal grains. Ergot is described botanically as a sclerosium. That is a form of the ergot fungus that passes the winter. Ergot has, more than any other drug, a fascinating history, in the course of which its role and meaning has inverted. Once treated as a poison, in the course of time it has changed to a rich storehouse of valuable medicaments. Ergot first appeared in history in the early Middle Ages as a cause of epidemic-like outbreaks of mass poisoning, to which thousands of men at times fell victim. The illness, whose connection with ergot was for a long time obscure, appeared in two characteristic forms. As a gangrenous form, ergotismus gangrenosus, and a convulsive form, ergotismus convulsivus. Designations to the disease such as mal des ardents, Ignis Sacer, Heiliges Feuer, or St. Anthony's Fire refer to the gangrenous form of ergotism. The patron saint of ergotism victim was St. Anthony. Next slide, please. And it was the order of St. Anthony that above all undertook care of these patients. Here you see St. Anthony surrounded by patients with ergotism. Epidemic-like occurrences of ergot poisoning have been recorded in most European countries and also in certain areas of Russia. With improvement in agriculture and since the understanding that was attained in the 17th century that ergot containing bread was the cause of ergotism, the frequency and extent of ergotism epidemics diminished considerably. The last great epidemic occurred in certain areas of southern Russia in the years 1926 to 27. The first mention of a medicinal application of ergot, namely as an ecbolic, that means a medicament accelerating childbirth, is found in the herbal of the Frankfurt city physician Adam Lonitzer from the year 1582. Also ergot, as in the above citation, was used since olden times by midwives. It was not until 1808 that the drug found entry into academic medicine. Based on a work by the American physician John Stearns entitled Account of the Pulvis Parturiens, a Remedy for Quickening Childbirth. The use of ergot as an ecbolic did not, however, endure. The great danger for the child that lay above all in the uncertainty of dosage, which when too high led to uterine spasms, indeed became known early. From then on, the use of ergot in obstetrics was confined to the stopping of postpartum hemorrhage, to the stopping of bleeding after birth. After the assimilation of ergot into various pharmacopoeias during the first half of the 19th century, the first chemical work toward isolation of the active principles of this drug began. The numerous researchers that concerned themselves with this problem during the first 100 years did not, however, succeed in identifying the actual substances having the therapeutic activity. In 1907, the Englishmen Barger and Catt were the first to isolate an active alkaloid preparation which they named ergotoxin, because it produced more of the toxic than therapeutic properties of ergot. This preparation was not homogeneous, as I was able to show 35 years later, consisting of 3 single alkaloids. Nevertheless, the pharmacologist Henry Dale discovered for ergotoxin, besides the uterotonic effect, an antagonistic activity on adrenaline in the autonomic nervous system, important in the therapeutic use of ergot alkaloid. Only in 1970, Professor Stoll isolated the first chemically pure alkaloid, which he named ergotamine, and which found widespread use in therapeutics as a uterotonic agent and in the treatment of migraine. At the start of the 30s, a new era of ergot research began. It began with the determination of the chemical structure of ergot alkaloids in English and American laboratories. By chemical cleavage, Jacobs and Craig of the Rockefeller Institute in New York succeeded in isolating and characterizing the nucleus common to all ergot alkaloids, which they named lysergic acid. An important development as much from the chemical as medicinal perspective later brought the isolation of the specifically butyrothonic hemostatic principle of Ergot, which was published simultaneously by 4 institutions, independently of one another, among them the Sandoz Laboratory. It concerned an alkaloid of comparatively simple structure, which was water-soluble, and that was named ergobasine by the Basel group, ergometrin by the English researcher, and finally ergonovine by the International Pharmacopoeia Commission. By chemical degradation of ergobasine, Jacobs and Craig obtained lysergic acid and the amino alcohol propanolamine as cleavage products. I set as a first goal of my research in the Ergot field the problem of preparing this alkaloid synthetically through chemical linking of the 2 components of ergobasine, namely of lysergic acid and propanolamine. The lysergic acid necessary for these studies had to be obtained by chemical cleavage of some other ergot alkaloid. Lysergic acid proved to be a rather unstable substance, and its bonding with these basic radicals posed difficulties. In the technique known as Curtius synthesis, I ultimately found a process that proved useful for combining lysergic acid with amines. With this method, I produced a great number of lysergic acid compounds. By the combination of lysergic acid with propanolamine, a compound was obtained that was identical with the natural ergot alkaloid ergobasine. That was the first synthesis, that is, artificial production of an ergot alkaloid. This was not only of scientific interest as confirmation of the chemical structure, but also of practical significance, because ergobasine is present in ergot only in very trifling quantities. With this synthesis, it became possible to convert the other alkaloids existing abundantly in ergot to the valuable pharmaceutical preparation, ergobasine. Please, next slide. After here you see the left side. After this first success in the ergot field, synthesis of ergonovine, my investigation progressed further in 2 directions. First, I attempted to improve the pharmacological properties of ergobasine by variation of its amino alcohol radical. Together with my colleague Dr. Bayer, a process was developed for economical production of propanolamine and other amino alcohols. Indeed, by substitution of the propanolamine contained in ergobasine with the amino alcohol butanolamine, that is only one methyl group more on the radical up on the right side. That is butanolamine. It's a homologue of propanolamine. By this way I obtained an alkaloid that even surpassed the natural alkaloid in its therapeutic properties. This improved ergobasine has found worldwide application as a dependable uterotonic hemostatic remedy under the trade name Metrogene, and is today the leading medicament for this indication in obstetrics. I further employed my synthetic procedure to produce new lysergic compounds, from which, on the basis of their chemical structure, other types of pharmacological properties could be expected. The 25th substance in this series of synthetic lysergic acid derivatives was lysergic acid diacetylamide, abbreviated as LSD-25 for laboratory usage, which I first produced in 1938. I had planned the synthesis of this compound with the intention of obtaining an analeptic, that means a circulatory and respiratory stimulant. Such stimulating properties could be expected for lysergic acid diacetylamide because it shows similarity in chemical structure to the analeptic already known at that time, namely to nicotinic acid diacetylamide, to coramine. The structural formula you see on the right side. You see that the upper ring of LSD, of lysergic acid, corresponds to nicotinic acid. Coramine. During the testing of LSD-25 in the pharmacological department of Sandoz, whose director at that time was Professor Ernst Rothling, a strong effect on the uterus was established. It amounted to some 70% of the activity of ergobasine. Furthermore, it was remarked in the report that the experimental animals became restless during the narcosis. But the new substance aroused no special interest in our pharmacologists and physicians. Further tests were then left off. For the next 5 years, nothing happened with the substance LSD-25. Meanwhile, my work with Ergot field advanced further in other directions. A peculiar presentiment that this substance could possess active properties other than those established in the first investigations and expected induced me 5 years after the first synthesis once again to produce LSD-25 in order to give it again to the pharmacological department for further tests. That was, in a way, uncommon, as experimental substances, once they had been found uninteresting from a pharmacological aspect, as a rule, were definitely stricken from the research program. In the spring of 1943, I repeated the synthesis of LSD-25. This involved, as in the first synthesis, the production of only a few centigrams of this compound. In the final step of the synthesis, during the purification and crystallization of lysergic acid diacetylamide in the form of a tartrate, that is a salt of this tartaric acid, I was interrupted in my work by unusual sensations. I take the description of this incident from the report that I wrote at the time to Professor Stoll. Last Friday, April 16, I was forced to interrupt my work in the laboratory in the middle of the afternoon and proceed home as I was seized by a peculiar restlessness combined with a slight dizziness. At home, I lay down and sank into a not unpleasant, intoxicated-like condition that was characterized by an extremely stimulated imagination. In a dreamlike state, with eyes closed, I found the daylight to be unpleasantly glaring. An uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures of extraordinary plasticity with intense kaleidoscopic-like play of colors surged in upon me. After some 2 hours, this condition faded away. The nature and course of this peculiar experience aroused the suspicion that it resulted from an external toxic influence, and I surmised the connection with the substance with which I had just worked, namely with lysergic acetylsalicylate tartrate. However, I could not imagine how I could have absorbed some of this material, since I was accustomed, because of the known toxicity of ergot substances, to meticulously neat work. But possibly a bit of the LSD solution had contacted my fingertips during recrystallization, and a trace of the substance could have come to be absorbed through the skin. In the event that LSD-25 had been the cause of the described incident, then it would have to be a substance of extraordinary potency. With the objective of getting to the bottom of this, I decided to carry out a self-experiment. In order to be cautious, I began the experiment with the smallest quantity with which a definite effect could just barely be expected, namely with 0.25 milligram lysergic acetylsalicylate tartrate. The following is a description of this experiment from a laboratory notebook. April 19th. Preparation of a 0.05% aqueous solution of lysergic acetylsalicylate tartrate. 5 milligram of air-dried crystalline tartrate was dissolved in 10 cc of water. At 1620, 0.5 cc of the solution containing 0.25 milligram tartrate was taken orally. The solution was completely tasteless, like pure water. At 1650, still no trace of any effect. At 17, slight dizziness, restlessness, unable to concentrate, thoughts, visual distortions, desire to laugh. Here's a note in my laboratory journal, these. The last words could be written down only with great effort. It was now already clear to me that LSD had been the cause of the remarkable experience of the previous Friday. Also, all the perceptions were of the same type as before, only much more intense. Only with the greatest difficulty could I still speak intelligibly. I asked my laboratory assistant, who was informed of the self-experiment, to escort me home. On the way home by bicycle, an automobile was not available at the moment. During wartime, automobiles were available only to privileged people in Switzerland. During riding home, my condition began to assume threatening forms. Everything in my field of vision wavered and was distorted as if seen in a curved mirror. I also had the sensation of being unable to move from the spot. Nevertheless, my assistant later told me that we had traveled very rapidly. Finally, however, we arrived at home, still safe and sound, and I was just still capable of asking my companion to summon our family doctor and to ask for milk from the neighbor. In spite of my delirious, bewildered condition, I could think clearly and effectively for brief periods. I thought of milk as a non-specific antidote for poisoning. The dizziness and sensation of fainting became so strong at times that I could no longer hold myself erect and had to lay down on the sofa. My surroundings was now transformed themselves in more terrifying ways. Everything in the room spun around, and the familiar objects and pieces of furniture assumed grotesque, mostly threatening forms. They were in continuous motion, animated, as if impregnated by life, by an inner restlessness. The neighbor woman who brought the milk I scarcely recognized any longer. She was no longer Mrs. R, but a rather malevolent, insidious witch with a colored mask. Even worse than these demonic transformations of the outer world were the alterations that I perceived in myself, in my inner being. Every exertion of my will to put an end to the disintegration of the outer world and the dissolution of my ego seemed to be wasted effort. A demon had invaded my being, had taken possession of my mind, body and soul. I jumped up and screamed in order to free myself from him, but then sank down again, powerless on the sofa. The substance with which I had wanted to experiment had vanquished me. It was the demon that scornfully triumphed over my will. A dreadful fear grasped me that I was becoming insane. I was taken to another world, another place, another time. My body seemed to be without sensation, lifeless, strange. Was I dying? Was this a transition? At times I believed myself to be outside of my body and then perceived clearly as an outside observer the complete tragedy of my situation. I had not even taken leave of my family. My wife had traveled, had stayed to visit her parents in Lucerne with our 3 children. Would they ever understand that I had not experimented thoughtlessly, irresponsibly, but rather with the utmost caution, and that such a result was in no way foreseeable? My fear and despair intensified not only because a young family should lose its father prematurely, but also because I thought of having to break off unfinished my work as a research fellow, which I meant so much for me, in the midst of fruitful, promising development. Also reflection emerged, full of acrimonious irony, that I was to be compelled now to leave this world behind prematurely through the effort of lysergic that I had brought forth into this world. As the doctor arrived, the climax of my despairing condition had already passed. And my laboratory assistant informed him about my self-experiment, as I myself was not yet able to formulate coherent sentences. He perplexedly shook his head after I had attempted to refer to my supposed mortally threatened bodily condition, for he could ascertain no normal symptoms other than an extremely dilated pupils. Pulse, blood pressure and breathing were normal. He therefore prescribed me medicaments. He conveyed me to my bedroom and watched over me on my bed. Slowly again I returned from a weird, unfamiliar world to familiar, everyday reality. The horror softened and gave way to a feeling of fortune and gratitude. some more normal perceptions and thoughts returned, and my assurance increased that the danger of insanity had conclusively passed, that I would come again to life, because I really did not know if it ever would end, if it was the end. Now I gradually began to enjoy the unprecedented colors and plays of shapes that persisted behind my closed eyes. Kaleidoscopic-like, fantastic images surged in on me, alternating, variegated, opening and then closing themselves in circles and spirals, exploding in color fountains, rearranging, hybridizing themselves in constant flux. It was particularly remarkable how every acoustic perception, such as the sound of a door handle or a passing automobile, became transformed into optical perceptions. Every sound generated a vividly changing image corresponding in form and color. Late in the evening, my wife returned from Lucerne. Somebody had informed her by telephone that I had sustained a mysterious breakdown. Leaving the children behind with her parents, she had traveled home forthwith. I had by now already recovered myself sufficiently that I could relate what had happened. Exhausted, I then slept and woke the next morning refreshed, with a clear head, even though still somewhat tired physically. A sensation of well-being and renewed life flowed through me. Breakfast tasted delicious and was an extraordinary pleasure. When I later walked out into the garden in which the sun now shone after a spring rain, everything glistened and sparkled in fresh light. The world was as if newly created. Yes? Louder. Speak louder. All my senses vibrated in a condition of highest sensitivity that persisted for the entire day. These had been the first planned experiment with LSD. The first LSD trip, a rather dramatic one. Subsequent experiments on volunteer colleagues of the Sanders Research Laboratories confirmed the extraordinary activity of LSD on the human psyche. These showed that the effective oral dose of LSD is about 0.05 milligrams. In spite of my caution, I had chosen for the first experiment 5 times the average effective dose. I was aware that LSD, a new active compound with such properties, would have to be of use in pharmacology, in neurology, and especially in psychiatry, and that it would arouse the interest of concerned specialists. But at that time, I could not imagine that the new substance would later also come to be used beyond medical science in the drug scene as an intoxicant. Since in my first self-experiment, I had experienced LSD in its terrifying demonism, I could not imagine that this substance could be ever used, so to speak, as a pleasure drug. Also, the meaningful connection between LSD experience and spontaneous visionary experience I recognized only later after further experiments, which were carried out with lower doses and with a different set and setting. The that is the story of the discovery of LSD. It's a shortened fashion. And now I come to the second part of my talk, LSD experience and reality. The question is often put to me, what has made the deepest impression on me in my LSD experiments? And whether I have arrived at new understanding through these experiences. Of greatest significance to me has been the insight that I attained a fundamental understanding out of all my LSD experiments that what one commonly takes as the reality, including the reality of one's own individual person, by no means signifies something fixed, but rather something that is ambiguous. That there is not only one, but that there are many realities. One can also arrive at this insight through scientific reflections. The problem of reality is indeed and has been from time immemorial a central concern of philosophy. It is, however, a fundamental difference whether one approaches the problem of reality rationally with the logical methods of philosophy, or if one obtrudes upon this problem emotionally through an existential experience. The first planned LSD experiment was therefore so deeply moving and alarming because everyday reality and the ego experiencing it, which until then I had considered to be the only reality, dissolved and the unfamiliar ego experienced another unfamiliar reality. And the problem also appeared of an innermost self that a misuse on knowledge and understanding the products of certain intelligence could not possibly emerge from a consciousness of reality in which man is not separated from the environment, but rather exists as a part of living nature and the universe. Then, today, it is attempted to make amends for the damage to environment protective measures. All these endeavors remain only hopeless, superficial patchwork, if not curing of the Occidental intellectual neurosis ensues as then has characterized the objective reality conception. Healing would mean existential experience of a deeper, self-encompassing reality. The experience of such a comprehensive reality is impeded in an environment rendered dead by man's hand, such as is present in our great cities and industrial districts. Here the contrast between self and outer world becomes especially evident. Sensations of alienation, of loneliness and menace arise. It is these that impress themselves on everyday consciousness in Western industrial society. they also take the upper hand everywhere that technological civilization extends itself, and they largely determine the production of modern art and literature. The danger of a cleft reality experience evolving is lower in a natural environment. In field and forest, and in the animal world shelter-caring, indeed in every garden, a reality is perceptible that is infinitely much more real, older, deeper, and more wondrous than everything made by mankind that will yet endure. When the inanimate, mechanical and concrete world vanishes again, becomes rusted and fallen into ruin. In the sprouting, growth, blooming, fruiting, death, germination of plants, in their relationship with the sun, whose light we are able to convert into chemically bound energy in the form of organic compounds, out of which all life on our earth is built, in the being of plants, the same mysterious, inexhaustible, eternal life energy is evident that has also brought us forth and taken us back again in its womb, and in which we are sheltered and united with all living things. A comprehensive reality consciousness that ever more increasingly develops spontaneously, the more the primordial flora and fauna on our Mother Earth must yield to a dead technological environment. The notion of reality as one of the self, standing opposite in confrontation to the outer world, began to form itself as reported in the citation from Ben in the southern portion of our continent in Greek antiquity. No doubt, men at that time used the suffering that was connected with such a blessed reality consciousness. The Greek genius tried to cure by supplementing the multiform, richly colored, sensual as well deeply sorrowful Apollonian world view created by the subject of the sex cleavage is the Dionysian world of experience, in which this cleavage is abolished in ecstatic inebriation. Nietzsche writes in his book The Birth of Tragedy, either through the influence of narcotic potions, about which all primitive men and races speak in hymns, or by the powerful approach of spring, penetrating pleasurefully the whole of nature, all Dionysian emotions awaken, in the intensification of which subjectivity passes the way to complete self-oblivion. Under Dionysian magic, not only the alliance between man and man becomes closer, but also the alienated, hostile, or subdued nature celebrates again its day of atonement with its lost son with man. So far the situation of Nietzsche. The mysteries of illusion that were celebrated annually in the fall over an interval of approximately 2,000 years, from about 1500 BC until the 4th century AD, were intimately connected with the ceremonies and festivals in honor of the god Dionysus. These mysteries were established for the goddess of agricultural living, as stand for the recovery of her daughter Persephone, whom Hades, the god of the underworld, had abducted. A further thanksgiving was for the ear of grain that was presented by the two goddesses to Ptolemy, the first high priest of Eleusis. This brought him the cultivation of grain, which Ptolemy then disseminated over the whole globe. Persephone, however, was not always allowed to remain with her mother, because she had taken nourishment from Hades, contrary to the order of the highest soul. As punishment, she had to return to the underworld for part of the year. During this time it was winter on earth. The plants died and were withdrawn into the ground. To awaken to new life early in the year is Persephone's journey to earth. The myth of Demeter, Persephone, Hades and Ergot that was enacted as a drama formed, however, only the external framework of the event. The climax of the yearly ceremony that began with a procession from Athens to Eleusis, lasting several days, was the concluding ceremony with initiation that took place in the night. The initiates were forbidden by penalty of death to divulge what they had learned, beheld in the innermost, holiest chamber of the temple in the telesterion between souls. Not one of the multitude that ever initiated into the secret of Eleusis has ever done this. Pausanias, Plato, many Roman emperors such as Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius, and many other known personages of antiquity were party to this initiation. It must have been an illumination, a visionary side of a deeper reality, an insight into the true basis of the universe. That can be concluded from the statement of the initiate about the value, about the importance of the vision for her life. Thus it is reported in a Homeric hymn. Blissful is he among men on earth who has beheld her. He who has not been initiated into the holy mystery, who has no part therein, remains a corpse in gloomy darkness. Pindar speaks of the Eleusinian benediction with the following verse. Blissful is he who, after having beheld him, enters in the way beneath the earth. He knows the end of life as well as its divinely granted beginning. Cicero, also famous Cynicus, likewise put in first position the splendor that fell upon his life from Eleusis when he said, not only have we received the reason there that we may live in joy, but also besides that we may die with better hope. How could the mythological representation of such an obvious occurrence that runs its course annually before our eyes, namely the seed grain that is dropped into the earth, dies there in order to allow a new plant, new life to ascend into the light, prove to be such a deep, comforting experience as that attested to by the writers report. It is traditional knowledge that the initiates were furnished with a potion, the Tikeo, for the final ceremony. It is also known that barley extract and mint were ingredients of the Tikeo. Religious scholars and scholars of mythology like Carl Kerenyi, from whose book on the Eleusinian mysteries the preceding statements were taken, and with whom I was associated in relation to the search on the mysterious potion, are of the opinion that the Tycheon was mixed with a hallucinogenic drug. That would make understandable the ecstatic visionary experience of the Demeter Persephone as a symbol of the cycle of life and death in a comprehensive and timeless reality. When the Ghost King Alaric, coming from the north, invaded Greece in 396 AD and destroyed the sanctuary of Eleusis, it was not only the end of a religious center, but it also signified the decisive downfall of the ancient world. With the monks who accompanied Alaric, Christianity penetrated into the country which must be regarded as a cradle of European culture. The cultural historical meaning of the Eleusinian mysteries, their influence on European intellectual history, can scarcely be overestimated. Here, suffering man found a cure for his rational, objective, less intellect in a mystical totality experience that let him believe in immortality, in everlasting existence. This belief has survived in early Christianity, also with other symbols. It is found as a promise even in particular passages of the Gospel, most clearly in the Gospel according to John, as in chapter 14, 16, 20. Jesus speaks to his disciples as he takes leave of them. And I will pray to the Father, and he shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth. At that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. This promise constitutes the heart of my Christian belief and my call to natural scientific research. That we will attain to knowledge of the universe through the Spirit of truth, and thereby to understanding of our being one with the deepest, most comprehensive reality with God. Ecclesiastical Christianity, determined by the duality of creator and creation, has, however, with its nature alienated religiosity, largely obliterated the Eleusinian Dionysian legacy of antiquity. In the Christian sphere of belief, only particular blessed men have attested to a timeless, comforting reality, experienced in spontaneous state, to which in antiquity the elite of innumerable generations had access through the initiation of a youth. The numismatica of Catholic saints and traditions that the representatives of Christian mysticism, Jacob Böhme, Meister Eckhart, Angelus Silesius, Samuel Traherne, William Blake, and others, describe in their writings are obviously essentially related to the enlightenment that the initiate into the Eleusinian mysteries experience. The fundamental importance of a mystical totality experience for the recovery of man in Western industrial societies afflicted by a one-sided rational materialistic worldview is today placed entirely in the foreground, not only by adherents of Eastern religious movements like Zen-Buddhism, but also by leading representatives of academic psychiatry. Of the appropriate literature, here we will refer only to the book of Balthasar Behrens, the Basel psychiatrist working in Zurich. They give access also to numerous other authors who deal with the same problem. Today, a type of metamedicine, metapsychology, and metapsychiatry is beginning to include as a basic healing principle in therapeutic practice the metaphysical in man that manifests itself as an experience of a deeper duality surmounted in reality. In addition, it is most significant that not only medicinal, but even wider circles of our society also consider the overcoming of the dualistic left worldview as a prerequisite and basis for the recovery and spiritual renewal of Occidental civilization and culture, out of which renunciation of the materialistic philosophy of life would occur and a new reality consciousness would evolve. As a path to the perception of a deeper, comprehensive reality, in which the experiencing individual is also sheltered, meditation in its different forms today stands in the foreground. Meditation is distinguished from prayer in the usual sense, which is based upon the duality of creation and creation. Essentially in that in meditation, the abolishment of the I-you barrier is aspired to by the fusing of object and subject, of sender and receiver, of objective reality and self. Objective reality, the worldview, which the scientifically seeking spirit has produced, is the myth of our time. It has replaced the ecclesiastical, Christian and mythical Apollonian worldview. But this ever-broadening objective knowledge constituting objective reality does not need to desecrate. In the contrary, if it only advances deep enough, it inevitably leads to the non-further explainable, primal ground of the universe, to the wonder, the mystery of the divine. In the microcosmos of the atom, in the macrocosmos of the spiral nebula. Meditation begins at the limits of the objective reality, to which rational knowledge and perception have advanced. Meditation does not mean rejection of the objective reality. Rather, on the contrary, it consists of penetration to a deeper dimension of reality. It is not escape into a dream world. Rather, it is through simultaneous philosophical contemplation of the surfaces and depth of the objective reality after its comprehensive truth. It puts the terms of fundamental importance and be not merely a transient fashion of the present. If more and more men today would make a meditation hour, or at least a few minutes of meditation, a daily habit, as a result of the meditative penetration and broadening of the natural scientific worldview, a new, deepened reality consciousness would have to evolve, that would increasingly become the property of all mankind. This could become the basis of a new religiosity, which would not be based on the beliefs of the dogmas of various religions, but rather on perception through the spirit of truth. What is meant here is a perception, a reading and understanding of the text at first hand, out of the book of that God Singer has written, as Paracelsus has said, out of the universe. The transformation of the objective world in a deepened and thereby religious reality consciousness can be accomplished gradually by continuing practice of meditation. It can also come to pass, however, as a certain enlightenment, as a visionary experience. It is then particularly profound, blessed and meaningful. Such a mystical totality experience may nevertheless be not induced even by decade-long meditation, as Balthasar Scheherin writes. Also, it does not happen to every man. Also, the capability of mystical experience belongs to the essence of human spirituality. Nevertheless, in the uses the mystical vision, the healing, comforting experience could be arranged in the prescribed place at the appointed time for all of the multitude who were initiated into the Holy Mystery. This could be accomplished both by the fact that the hallucinogenic drug came into use. The characteristic property of hallucinogens to suspend the boundaries between the experiencing self and the outer world in an ecstatic emotional experience makes it possible, with their help and after suitable internal and external preparation, as it was accomplished in a perfect manner at the Jugend, to evoke a mystical totality experience according to plan. Meditation is preliminary to the same goal that was aspired to and was attained in Eleutherian mystery. Accordingly, I imagine that in the future, with the help of LSD, the mystical being, growing meditation, can be made accessible to an increasing number of practitioners of meditation. I see the true importance of LSD in the possibility of aiming from the material side. Meditation aims at the mystical experience of a deeper, comprehensive reality. Such a use accords entirely with the essence and working character of LSD as a sacred drug. Even the use of LSD as a drug aid in psychoanalysis and psychotherapy is based essentially on the same effect of LSD, on a transient loosening or suspension of the IU barrier that facilitates the extrication of patients from egocentric problem cycles, and on replacement of the rational, objective world view by an emotional experience of a deeper reality. I thank you for your attention.